Hey everybody and welcome back. I am Ian Bickle and today we are going to be talking about how you know whether or not you are in a calorie deficit. So these are kind of the signs and symptoms that you can look for in order to identify whether things are moving the right way, because quite often a lot of people may not be in a calorie deficit. They may have taken a formula off the internet and not realized that that formula is just kind of a starting point. So if you are tracking using MyFitnessPal or another app like MyFatSecret or MyMacros Plus or whatever, they all do the same. Basically, that's not going to determine whether or not you're in a calorie deficit. That's just giving you numbers based off an equation. These are mean numbers or averages, and you are a statistical person, so you have to take those and make subtle changes in order to continue to make progress or make progress in the first place. So these are kind of signs that progress is being made. So here is my list. So the first thing that I want to focus on is going to be weight loss. Now this is a tricky thing with fat loss. We associate weight loss with fat loss. So there's a lot of diets out there that can accelerate weight loss, but not necessarily accelerate fat loss. This has been shown when people adopt a low carbohydrate, high fat diet. They remove a lot of fiber from their diet, a lot of carbohydrates, which store as glycogen, and there's like 3 grams of water with said glycogen. So they lose carbohydrate weight in the form of glycogen, and they also lose water weight. So within the first week, they can lose up to 5 to 7 pounds, maybe more. But that is weight. If you want to lose weight, go to the toilet, weigh yourself before, weigh yourself after. You're going to weigh less. You will weigh less. It might not show up on the scale, but you have excreted something from your body that is, was there, it's no longer there. You weigh less. If you go and drink liquid, if you go and eat, you weigh more. So what we're focusing on is meaningful weight loss, fat loss. And this is where the scales can play a little bit of a trick on you, because people can be losing fat, but they may maintain weight. So what we want to do, firstly, identify, are we in a plateau? This generally is a 2 to 4 week process. Has the scales moved at all? Typically with females, it's more challenging because hormonally, they have a lot more things at play than us males with the menstrual cycle, etc. Stress is another thing that can influence our cortisol levels, which kind of can lead to water retention. So we may be masking our fat loss with all of these different things going on, all these different variables. Now, this is why with clients, I like to try and get some form of structure, like them to see a little bit of repetition, because that helps us iron out the inconsistencies. So if we're eating similar meals at similar times and also weighing ourselves at similar times, we can kind of more or less gauge that what we're doing is successful or whether it needs to be changed. But if you are changing variables too much, then that might lead to spikes in water retention, fluid retention, bloating, and things of that nature. So if the scales aren't moving, what we can do is look at other variables that are going to signal whether or not we are in a calorie deficit. Now, the second thing on this list, it's going to be hunger. Are you hungry? Are you hungry? Are you hungry? If you are not hungry at all, that might be okay, because a lot of people who have a significant amount of body fat to lose may change the landscape of their diet. They may be, in fact, eating a similar amount of quantity of food, but they are ingesting so few calories in comparison, because they've went from a highly processed diet to a less processed diet. They're eating now a lot of protein, a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, a lot of whole grains, where previously it was a lot of, as I said, processed foods, pizza, burgers, liquid calories, things like that. So they may not actually be hungry, but typically with people with a large amount of weight, we're going to see the scales drop, okay? So maybe with that individual, it's just a little bit of patience that we need. Now, starvation, that is a kind of guarantee that you're in a deficit. However, it's not advisable because what we want is sustainability, and we're not going to sustain starvation. So very, very low calorie diets are difficult to adhere to for that reason. Usually I am somebody who can kind of be fairly hungry, but it never dips into starvation. Usually when I am in a calorie deficit, I've done it numerous times now, I can kind of feel that I'm in a calorie deficit. I'm a bit hungry, I'm not starving. Yeah, I could eat, but I'm kind of okay with that. And this is one of the issues people stumble into. They maybe not recognize hunger ever, and usually their cue when they're hungry is to eat, and they don't ride that wave a little bit. So with a little bit hunger, yes, okay. With absolute starvation, maybe your deficit is a little bit too aggressive. So looking at those numbers, if you are tracking on MyFitnessPal, maybe them knocking them up a little bit. So yes, you're in less of aggressive deficit, but the deficit you can adhere to is 10 times better than the deficit you can't adhere to. The third thing on my list is going to be, it's a few things, but I've kind of packed them all together. How your clothes fit, measurements, and photos. So all of these kind of objective measurements. Clothes is a decent one, especially within belt sizes, pants, how they feel on your chest and stomach and things like that. That's an easy one. Another one is obviously tape measurements. Now, taking measurements of your problematic areas like your stomach, hips, thighs, chest for some people, maybe arms for the bros that don't want to lose their gains. A lot of that will be body fat, however. So by having less fat, you're going to see more muscle definition, and it's going to give the illusion that they are bigger. A little bit of a tip there for you. But if we are seeing these visual changes, if our photos are looking better, if our measurements are coming down and the weight hasn't shifted, and we're not hungry, then we are losing body fat. Now, again, there could be this lag between what's going on in the body and it's showing up on the scales. And this is quite often what happens again with females. Sometimes we compare week 1, month 1 to week 1, month 2 because of the nature of their cycle. What quite often happens though, when people see no results, they emotionally react, and when people are emotional, they're a bit erratic and kind of go off on one, overeat, and then they're back to square one. And what we need to do is be consistent. I think the general media has shown that fat loss is easy, when in actual fact it's not. It can be challenging for people, and it isn't always linear. And especially given the nature of an individual's lifestyle, their stress levels, their job, their family situation, relationship situations, it's often a little bit more complicated than just going on a diet for some. You know, me dieting now versus when I was 20 is a different story. All I had to do when I was 20 was worry about prestiging on Call of Duty. Whereas now I've got businesses, I've got a child, I've got a wife, I've got all of these sorts of things. So we've got to be kind of very conscientious of the context that we are living in. Number 4 on my list, and this is a hugely important one, it's compliments. What are people saying to you, especially those that haven't seen you in a long, long time? Because you see yourself every day. You look in the mirror, and people are quite self-critical of themselves and will ask a lot of questions. Now, sometimes there is this eureka moment when you see it, when maybe you've been in a deficit for a prolonged period of time, and you're just kind of plugging away, you're process-driven, ticking boxes, and then all of a sudden one day you get up and you're like, whoa, what happened? Where did I go? You see it. It's like lights are switched on, and that's super motivating. But it's the people you don't see in a while, especially given this kind of pandemic time that we're living in. You know, there might be a period where you're not seeing someone for months, and you can be running this calorie deficit, just getting the job done. What is it? I like the saying, you know, what is the saying? I like the saying, Work hard in silence and let success be the noise. And this is a perfect opportunity to just plug away, get things done, make no big deal of it whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, all your friends are like, holy hell, what happened? And that's a good indication that what you've been doing has been successful. And last on my list, and probably one of the most important things, now it's so kind of driven by what everybody else thinks, especially within this social media age. But the most important question is, what do you think and how do you feel? We're all told that things are done in a specific order or a given time frame, when in reality, as I mentioned earlier, it's important that you look at the context of your life and apply this deficit appropriately given the nature of your stress levels, social life, and so on and so forth. There is no right or wrong way of doing this. How do you feel? Do you feel your clothes are fitting better? Do you feel happier, more confident? Do you feel like your stomach shrank a little bit? Do you feel more energized and all of that sort of stuff? At the end of the day, we are doing this because we want to feel better in our lives. And this is where like this kind of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation comes in. Like, why are you doing this? This is the big question. Are you doing it for other people? Or are you truly doing it for yourself? And when you start doing things for yourself, you start making up your own rules and being content and happy with the process you are following. Anyway, that's 5 things that can tell you whether you're in a calorie deficit or not. I would love to hear what you think of this video or podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and I will catch you next time.